Okay, I want you to picture something for a second. Well, maybe don't close your eyes if you're driving, but, picture this. It's that classic image, that recruitment ad for a life at sea.
Oh, yeah, I know the one.
The sun is setting over this perfectly calm ocean. The water's like liquid gold. And you've got the captain on the bridge wing, crisp white uniform, mirrored sunglasses, just looking out at the horizon. It looks so peaceful. It looks like freedom.
And let's be honest, it looks lucrative. That's the dream they're selling, right? Adventure, tax-free salary, the romance of it all.
Exactly. It's the postcard image. It's what has drawn young people to maritime academies for generations. But, well, we found an article this week that basically takes that glossy postcard and just rips it in half.
It does, because the reality for the youngest people on board, the cadets, is often dangerous, incredibly isolating, and just terrifyingly silent.
It's a heavy topic today. We're looking at a piece from the DeepDraft. It was published October 9, 2025. It's called The Silence That Follows a Cadet's Death at Sea, and it's written by Captain Raghu Sharma.
And this is important. Sharma isn't just a journalist looking in. He's a veteran master. I mean, he's been the cadet scrubbing the decks, and he's been the captain giving the orders.
So when he says the industry is facing a systemic failure in leadership, you really have to listen.
What's so striking about his perspective is he identifies this data void. We hear about the big disasters, ships sinking, oil spills. But when a young cadet disappears or takes their own life, there's often just silence. He calls it the machinery of despair.
That phrase, machinery of despair, it really stuck with me. We're going to unpack that because it's not just about, feeling sad. It's about a system that actively breaks people.
And what's really controversial, and we'll get into this, is Sharma's argument that the industry's attempts to fix safety might actually be making things worse.
A pendulum swing.
Exactly. But before we get to the big systemic stuff, we have to look at the reality check he starts with. He highlights two specific cases from September 2025. And you have to remember, these happened just 4 days apart.
Right. So the first one was on September 20th. You have a 22-year-old deck cadet on the Front Princess. It's this massive oil tanker going from Iraq to China. And somewhere off the coast of Sri Lanka, this young man just vanishes.
And I think we need to pause on what vanishes actually means here, because the report says the crew searched for 96 hours.
That's 4 full days.
4 days. Can you imagine that atmosphere? You're on this steel island in the middle of the ocean. You're checking every compartment, every single tank, every void space. You're scanning the water, which is just endless blue.
And every hour that passes, the hope it must just evaporate.
Totally. And the exhaustion must be overwhelming. But here's where that silence that Sharma talks about creeps in. The search ends. They find nothing. The management company releases a statement, and they suspect he was lost overboard.
An accidental fall. Case closed.
Well, not for the family. They're not buying it. They're demanding a high-level probe. They think it could be foul play or something darker. But because there's no body, no witnesses, and no CCTV on that specific part of the deck, it just becomes a battle of narratives.
The company says accident. The family says cover-up. And it just hangs there as an unexplained loss.
And then, barely 96 hours later, September 24th, another tragedy. This time on the Blue Star Chios, a Greek ferry.
This one is different, though. It wasn't a disappearance. It was a violent mechanical failure. A 20-year-old engine cadet was crushed by a watertight door.
I shudder just thinking about that. Watertight doors aren't like house doors. They're hydraulic steel barriers designed to stop a ship from flooding. They close with incredible force.
And here's the detail that just guts you. This kid had been on the job for less than a week.
Less than a week, so he's barely unpacked his bag.
Right. On paper, he was ready. He was certified. He had his safety papers. He had done the safety familiarization checklist. But in reality, he walked right into a trap he just didn't understand.
Now, in this case, there was an immediate reaction. The captain and chief engineer were arrested for manslaughter. The unions went on strike. It was loud.
But Sharma uses these two cases, the silent disappearance and the loud accident, to show a pattern. These are young, qualified people dying in what should be preventable circumstances.
And he asked this question that seems so simple but is actually incredibly frustrating. If you wanted to know how many seafarers died this year globally, where would you even look?
I just assumed there'd be a database. I mean, in aviation, if a plane has a near miss, let alone a fatality, it's logged, investigated, and put in a central database for everyone to learn from.
In shipping. No chance. Sharma calls it the black hole of data.
But why? Is it just incompetence?
It's structural. Shipping is so fragmented. You have the flag states, Panama, Liberia, the Marshall Islands, who are technically responsible for investigating. Then you've got the P&I clubs, the insurers, who keep their own private data.
Yeah.
Then the shipping companies. And none of these silos talk to each other.
So the insurers know what they paid out for deaths, but that data doesn't get to the people actually training the next generation of cadets.
Precisely. And because it's all scattered, you can't distinguish the signal from the noise. Is a man overboard? A genuine accident? Was it a suicide? Or was it foul play?
Yeah.
Without a central, transparent record, you can't see the trends.
So the data void, as he calls it, effectively silences the dead. It stops us from learning how to prevent it from happening again.
It feels like the industry is just shrugging its shoulders. Oh, well, the sea is dangerous.
And that's exactly the attitude Sharma challenges. He realizes this isn't just about doors or railings, it's about leadership. He tells this fantastic story from his own master's oral exam back in 2010.
Oh, I love this part. He's sitting there sweating, facing this examiner, Captain Khatri. And Khatri is just grilling him on the most obscure technical
The
stuff.
Himalaya clause.
Yeah, I'd look that up. It's this very specific legal clause in bills of lading. I mean, it's dry textbook stuff.
And Sharma is nailing it. He's reciting the law, the pilotage techniques, everything. He's proving he is technically perfect. And then Captain Khatri just stops. He changes the entire vibe of the room.
And he asks, "You were the captain? A new cadet joins the ship. How will you handle him?"
It's such a pivot. He's expecting a question about, I don't know, stability calculations.
And Sharma freezes because he realizes he hasn't thought about the human element. Khatri follows up. If he comes to you with a complaint, how will you handle that?
It forced Sharma to stop thinking like a lawyer or an engineer and start thinking like a leader, and it brought back his own memories of being a cadet. And let's be real, the picture he paints of the old school days it's not pretty.
No. He describes a culture of humiliation. The moment you walked up the gangway, you lost your dignity. You weren't Raghu or John, you were just cadet. You were like the lowest form of life on the ship.
He talks about tasks being used as punishment. If you made a mistake, which, you're supposed to do when you're learning, you weren't taught, you were hazed.
And Sharma argues that this culture creates that machinery of despair. When we see a suicide at sea or a disappearance, we label it mental health issues. We personalize it. But Sharma says, no, look at the structure. It's harassment disguised as toughening up. It's isolation. And it's unsafe work.
I want to stop on that unsafe work part because he shares a personal story from his cadet days in the early 2000s that honestly sounds like a horror movie. He calls it the tank cleaning story.
It's visceral. This was on a product tanker.
Yes.
They needed to clean the cargo tanks. The regular crew, the ratings, refused to do it. It was overtime, and the conditions were horrific. So who gets sent in?
The cadets.
The chief officer sends the cadets into these tanks with portable pumps and mops. Now just picture this. You're crawling into a confined steel space. It's hot, and the air is thick with chemical vapors.
Caraxylene and naphtha.
Naphtha isn't just a bad smell. It's a neurotoxin. It smells sickly sweet, almost like gasoline, but heavier. It attacks your nervous system immediately. You get dizzy, then euphoric, then you just want to vomit.
And surely they had breathing gear, gas meters.
They had them. But Sharma says the commercial pressure, the need to get the ship ready for its charter, was so high that safety was just ignored. He talks about the chief officer looking at a gas meter that was reading unsafe and just sending them in anyway.
He describes cadets coming out onto the deck, gasping for air, vomiting, and then going back in. Because if they didn't, they'd be fired.
Or be labeled as soft, as unfit for sea. Sharma writes, it wasn't bravery. It was a culture that normalized risk. They were being conditioned to believe that risking your life for the company's schedule was just part of the job.
That's just exploitation, plain and simple. But if that story explains why cadets get broken, there's another one he tells that explains why they disappear. The story of the hiding cadet.
This is the one that really underscores the silence. This happened in the Dover Strait, one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world. It's winter, freezing cold, and a cadet goes missing.
So the ship goes into emergency mode. They turn around. They're searching the freezing water, broadcasting Mayday relays. The family is notified that their son is likely dead. I mean, the trauma inflicted on everyone.
The ship searches for 3 days. They assume he's gone. They pull into the next port. The police come on board. And then the cadet reappears.
He wasn't in the water.
No. He had been hiding in the steering flat.
The steering flag!
Yeah, it's a remote compartment at the very back of the ship where the rudder machinery is. It's noisy, it's cold, and it's lonely. He'd been there for days, surviving on biscuits and water that some of the ratings, who felt sorry for him, had been sneaking to him.
Wait, think about that for a second. He's in a steel box. He can feel the ship turning around. He can probably hear the alarms. He knows his parents are being told he's dead. And he still won't come out. Why?
Fear. Absolute terror of the chief officer. He had been bullied so relentlessly that he decided disappearing was a better option than facing his boss one more time.
That's a level of desperation I can barely wrap my head around.
Sharma's insight here is so profound. He says, despair doesn't always look like suicide. Sometimes it's a young person disappearing into the machinery to escape. The ship had become a prison to him.
So we have this history of brutal treatment, the hazing, the dangerous tanks. The logical reaction would be to fix the culture, stop the bullying, make it safer. But Sharma says the industry has reacted in a way that is, well, it's weirdly controversial.
This is what he calls the pendulum swing, and it's fascinating. On one side, you still have the old guard, that revenge mindset. I suffered in the naphtha tank, so you have to suffer too.
Right, the whole it builds character argument, which is just nonsense.
But the corporate reaction to that has been what Sharma calls theatrical safety.
Theatrical safety. Okay, explain that. Because isn't safety always good? If companies are being extra strict, isn't that what we want?
You'd think so. But let's play devil's advocate for a minute. Imagine you're a cadet. The company is terrified of bad PR or a lawsuit, so they issue strict orders. Cadets are not allowed to do dangerous work. So during mooring operations, tying the ship to the dock, which is really dangerous work, the cadet is ordered to stand on the bridge wing and just watch. They're not allowed to touch the ropes.
Well, I guess at least they don't lose a finger.
True. But then that cadet gets promoted. Suddenly they're their third officer. Now they have to supervise the mooring deck. But they've never actually felt the tension in a rope. They've never wrestled with a winch. They were technically in charge, but they are practically incompetent.
Ah, I see. They become what Sharma calls ornamental officers.
Exactly. They are decorations. They have the uniform, the laptop, the checklist.
Yeah.
But they lack the grit. They haven't built any resilience because they were shielded from the reality of the work.
So it's a catch-22. If you throw them in the deep end, they drown. Sometimes, literally. But if you wrap them in cotton wool, they end up bright but broken, unable to handle the job when the safety net is finally removed.
And Sharma sees this firsthand. He talks about young second mates coming to him, totally overwhelmed, asking how to get a shore job because they just can't handle the pressure. They're not weak people. They were just trained in a simulation, not the real world.
That is a massive indictment of the entire training system. So we can't haze them and we can't baby them. What's the middle ground? Does Sharma offer a way out of this mess?
He does. And thankfully, he moves beyond the usual corporate buzzwords. He has 4 or 5 very concrete solutions.
Let's run through them. The first one is mentorship with accountability.
Right. Usually, you just get assigned a mentor on board, and it's just a name on a piece of paper. Sharma says this needs to be audited. Shoreside superintendents need to check. Is the mentor actually teaching? Is the relationship working? If the mentor is a bully, they need to be removed from that role. Period.
Which leads to his second point. Zero tolerance for harassment. But he frames it differently than I've heard before.
He says to treat harassment exactly like a safety violation. If you saw a crew member smoking next to a fuel tank, what will you do?
You'd stop them immediately. You'd write them up. It's a firing offense.
Exactly. Sharma says bullying should be treated with the same urgency. It's not an HR issue to be discussed later. It's an immediate threat to the entire ship's safety.
I like that. It reframes the behavior from being mean to being dangerous. Okay, what about anonymous reporting?
This is huge. Currently, if a cadet complains, they often have to complain to the captain, who might be friends with the bully, or to the company, who might blacklist them as a troublemaker. Sharma suggests third-party channels, maybe run by unions, a way to blow the whistle without, nuking your own career.
And then there's the welfare check.
This is such a simple, low-tech solution.
Yeah.
A person from the shore office just calls the cadet directly, not through the captain, just a direct call to say, hey, how you doing? You're eating okay? Are you sleeping?
It breaks that isolation loop. It reminds the cadet that someone on land actually knows they exist.
And finally, the big one. The one that circles right back to the start of our conversation. Transparency.
He demands that every single cadet death must trigger a public summary. You can redact the names to protect the family's privacy, sure, but the industry needs to know the facts.
No more lost overboard and case closed.
Exactly. Was it a safety failure? Was it suicide? Was it a lack of training? If we don't publish the why, we can't fix the system. As Sharma writes, ambiguity is not neutral. The silence protects the system, not the victim.
It forces us to realize that the silence at sea isn't just the quiet of the ocean. It's an administrative silence. It's the gap between the log entry and the truth.
It really is, and I think it leaves us with Sharma's final haunting observation. He writes, every tag on a cabin door hides a journey no report can explain.
That image, the tag on the door, it reminds you that behind every statistic, behind every debate about resilience versus safety, there was a young person who probably packed their bags with that same excitement we talked about at the beginning.
They wanted the adventure. They wanted the postcard. And the industry owes them so much more than just silence when things go wrong.
It's a lot to process. But I think it's a question we can all ask, even if we don't work on ships. In our own workplaces, are we building people up through genuine mentorship? Or are we just shielding them or hazing them until they break?
That's the so what for everyone listening. Resilience isn't accidental. You have to build it carefully. Otherwise, you're just waiting for the next tragedy.
Captain Sharma's article is a tough read, but a necessary one. We'll link to it in the show notes. Thanks for going on this deep dive with us.
Thank you. Stay safe out there.